Hello, I'm ABKX Toycat, and welcome back to an episode of the Minecraft Bedrock Updated Adventures Let's Play. This is the weekly update as to what's been going on, both in my survival world, as well as life, the universe, and everything in between. And today I wanted to talk about this jungle over here. I mean, it's not actually a jungle. I built it from, if I'm not mistaken, oak wood and maybe some jungle leaves on top. It was my idea of like having a jungle without actually having a jungle. It is, in my opinion, very clever, this like concept of having a jungle in a jungle, and by my opinion, I mean my opinion of 2012. It's very, very old now. Sorry, 2014 we apparently checked. And so this is my bootleg jungle temple. I think it's great and it's wonderful and all, but I've always felt like it could do with some improvements, and why not be the change I want to see in the world? Because you know what, I've always felt like this forest by my big date commemorating when I switched over from console to bedrock. I've always felt like this forest was kind of unnecessary and could be used for at least a custom forest of some form, and so let's chop it down, let's shear down these leaves, shall we, and let's use these as an opportunity to expand the jungle further. By the way, if you ever are trying to get a ton of leaves, just a reminder, a shears only has about 4 stacks worth of leaves that will gather by itself. It's actually slightly less, but if you put Unbreaking 3 on there, you'll get about 4 times as many. Pro tip, enchant your shears in Minecraft if you have too many levels and too many enchanted books, and for some reason value iron as much as I do, then boom, this lovely pair of enchanted shears will serve you well. For those of you wondering, by the way, I can't find my actual enchanted shears with efficiency, mending, and unbreaking, so I'm resorting to these pleb shears right here, obviously alongside my enchanted flint and steel. Very sad about that. If anyone knows where I've lost them, do let me know. But yeah, there's something fun about enchanting every item in Minecraft, and I've gone over that many times before. It's kind of this completionist instinct that we have inside of us. We love to finish something all the way. At least maybe someone who plays games, I feel that way sometimes. Like there's nothing more satisfying than knowing you've done everything, right? And I was thinking about this kind of recently. By the way, if you're curious, this Let's Play is not only an update about what's going on in the Let's Play world. By the way, there's been a lot of just small 10 to 15 minute Minecraft sessions in the last few weeks. I've like not been so consistently not playing Minecraft in a large way for a very long time because of how busy my life is, but we won't talk about that too much. But what we can instead talk about is the size of this tree, by the way. Do you see this? It's like 10 blocks of leaves up from the ground. I have to firework if I want to reach up to this tree, which is ridiculous. That's not how trees should work. There we go. We're on top of it again. Anyway, speaking of things that we're on top of, yes, I feel like recently I've had like a huge ton of tasks to do, and I've actually started having to write myself lists. I feel like one of the saddest points in life to get to is when you have a list in front of you that like tells you what you have to do in a day. It's like, you know, you have no freedom, you have a list, and that is, like, you know what, I don't know, it's a very dumb thought that I have. I think lists are actually a great way to organize for the vast majority of people, but I've just had so many like dumb small tasks, like make a phone call to someone you really don't want to make a phone call to, and then ask some questions that you're not even really sure how to ask, let alone what answer you're expecting, and then boom, magically you should expect good results. And so yeah, I've had a very, very busy last week. I try not to talk about it too much because I genuinely feel like for most people, it's like, yeah, either being an adult is a thing you just do and like, it's easy, man, you get over it, or it's like, I don't understand what you're saying, Toycat, you know, all I do is I come home, and if I have homework to do, I do that, and I don't know how many of that second category there actually is. And also, if you are in that second category, I actually, when I was in school, I had this, you know, the school gave us all planners to make sure we planned our homework out and could do it before it was due, but instead of that, I would just be like, you know, like teachers would force you to write stuff in there, and it's like, well, if you're forcing me to plan, I don't want to do it. And so, like, I have this, like, deep-seated hatred towards planning in advance, even though it's super, super handy, just because, like, well, can it really be so good if teachers had to force you to do it? The answer is no. If something's so good, why do people have to force you to do it, is always my kind of line of questioning. And so actually, that brings me very nicely to this 2014 jungle, because a part of me is always like, when you build something in the past, especially in a world you've been playing for so long, you kind of need to keep it. You need to see your old ideals of like why and how and what are you doing with something? And this is this is a very old ideal of how I would make a world. However, sometimes it's important to just do some little forms of updates. And you know what? These jungle trees that I made before jungles existed on Console Edition, if I'm not mistaken, obviously have a lot of flaws. Actually, I'm not sure that I even need to state that these jungle trees have some flaws, but what I do need to maybe state is the fact that I would like to do at least a tiny bit of fixing that. I feel like when you look at a tree like this, it's very funny, and like to me back then it was like, yeah, people put all this effort into trees, and I'm just gonna put 8 leaf blocks on top of one. But looking back on it, it's like, okay, we can do a little bit better. When I look at this, even I don't get my own joke. And when you don't get your own joke, it's a sign. It's just a sign. It's not a guaranteed tell. It's a sign that maybe it's not as great of a joke as you think. And so, we're going to be making these jungle trees just a little bit more accurate during the course of today, kind of fixing one of those mistakes from the past. And having mistakes in the past, I feel like is a very common experience. It's something. Also, when we place that down. Oh, the vines still work below it, we're fine. So we can place all of these. We make sure there's 1 block so we can still climb into the tree. Because, you got to be able to get to a vantage point or something like that. And then we'll just place a ton of blocks around here. Make sure it's 2 blocks tall in some parts and, 1 block tall in others. And then, boom, we've got ourselves our magnificent jungle tree. It's not much effort after all, probably. It actually might still look terrible, which I think would be a funny outcome. But speaking of funny outcomes, again, so this last week has been very busy. I'm really trying my best not to mention, what stuff that's going on there. And I think it's important sometimes to be like that, because we have a really bad read on ourselves as people, I find sometimes. For instance, I've been having a very miserable, I've been having a very bad week getting things uploaded onto YouTube. I've been existing solely on mobile internet. Well, even though I have a house here, I'm working on mobile internet from my laptop using my same portable setup from when I was in the United States of America. It's sad because what I desperately want to do is I want to be making, these super high. I want to get back to making the 4K videos that some of you care about. It's a small percentage, but I care about quality. I care about making something that people can enjoy watching. And a part of that is technical quality, right? And so, all these things have been getting to me over the last week, and seeing that combined with when you miss uploads, combined with just I don't know what, you're having a bad time on YouTube because you're not managing to hit the perfect confluence of what your subscribers want, and it's so it's been a bad couple weeks on YouTube, and my response to that is clearly, well, this is me being done. People have finally realized that this IBX Toy Cat fella doesn't really have anything unique going on, to say. There's nothing actually interesting going on there. I just subscribed by accident. And although, sure there is a chance that is definitely true, we often have this, such a bad read on ourselves that, again, it's kind of nice to believe things almost that, if you... I think having a bad outlook on yourself is bad, not just because... it's a way of, I thought about this in relation to myself so much that if you misunderstand yourself, it's not just, painful. It's not just, hurtful to think to yourself, you just suck. That's why people aren't, that's why, the average number of viewers per day or something is going down very slightly. It's because you suck. That's, not only is that not really productive or useful to think about in that way, or it's not nice, it's bad for, I don't know, mental health or whatever else. It's also just well, that's not helping you fix the problem in the future. A problem people have is when something really bad happens, this is a problem of oh, it's because I'm just worthy of having bad things happen to me. And that's what it is. And it's well, if you can use that to be how do I become not worthy of having bad things happen to me, then maybe you can make some improvement. But if you just blame yourself for things and don't even think about why you're blaming yourself and you just kind of do it aimlessly, then that's going to be entirely unproductive. I think the entire reason we feel various emotions, bad and good, is like to encourage our behavior in the future. And although the reasons, biologically speaking, we had to feel, again, I always bring this down to what even, I'm kind of like a reductionist sometimes. What even is happiness and sadness? Have you ever thought about that a little bit, a lot? Because I think about it a ton, what makes me happy and what makes me sad. But then, you can think about those things and list them out. But then what even is happiness and sadness? Why is it that sometimes you'll do some things and you'll feel really great? You'll feel this amazing feeling of yeah, I'm on top of the world. I can do anything I want. I'm the and you know, sometimes you can do things that feel bad. What is the point of these, you know, like brain signals? Why is it that eating an entire carrot cake, if you saw the cake that I got for my birthday, by the way, I really did eat all of the cake besides the bits that I showed on Twitter. I ate so much cake, and it's like, why does that make me feel bad? And it's like, well, because you're giving your body an amount of food that it really doesn't know what to do with, and so it's sending you the signal of like, please stop. We will make you feel bad mentally so that you can stop this. It's kind of just a, you know, very complex feedback system, right? It's like begging you to not do that because it is bad. Okay, so this fifth tree over here is gonna go really... Actually, you know what? Let's actually just... This tree right here that just has one branch coming off it, what if we just added more branches? Wouldn't that make it more interesting to look at? I think it would. If we had like a tree over here, because again, this is... The idea of this jungle tree is that it's a jungle tree made up of leaves as the wood, and then wood as the leaves. I think it's a hilarious idea. Thank you for agreeing with me. But if we just have all of the things very slightly... Okay, we give up on that one. Man, making trees is hard if you don't have scaffolding. Flying around should not be my default instinct for this. It almost feels a bit like you're cheating, like you're creating your way around, right? Am I the only one that feels that way? Like, it just feels unnatural. It feels not good. It feels like something we should be trying to avoid. And speaking of trying to avoid things, sometimes we try to avoid, like, you know, addressing the real underlying concern of something. Like, you know, why is it that something really bad happened? And so, I guess my bad thing in a lot of cases is like dealing with some important issue that requires another human being. Mostly like, you know, simply enough, making a phone call is something I will put off for so long because I'm much happier in that situation. But then it's like, okay, if you're much happier not making phone calls, why don't you just not? You know, like the reductionist point of like, why do you do things that make you not happy? And the answer is like, well, actually, you know, again, I literally can't live without calling a plumber in. Because if I don't call a plumber, there's a huge leak that needs to be fixed. And it's like, okay, well, that's an important call. If you don't make the call, it's because you're having a dysfunction in, I think it's called executive dysfunction, where like you want to do something, but you can't tell yourself to do it. Like if you're having that problem, that's something you can work out, I hope, that can be fixed. By the way, I have an idea. So there's a tree right here that I think would be a perfect placement for another jungle tree. What if I take the existing tree that already exists, and I just kind of make the base wider, and then fill this with wood, and kind of grow up from there. So it still is technically, you know, an oak tree. Like these are actual oak logs attached to an actual oak tree, but then it's also not, you know, being quirky, being strange. Why do I have the desire to do strange things in Minecraft? And it's an interesting thing overall, right? And actually, you know, these Let's Plays. I want to ask you a genuine question, internet, because this is the Let's Play is something I really like because it's an opportunity to speak to subscribers directly. I've said it before, I'll say it again. This is one of the more chill communities on YouTube, and you know, and that is at least for the Let's Play, because this is the place that like people who just who just see the videos on their homepage or just subscribe like aren't really that into it. They don't see these videos. They've got terrible click-through rates. They're like most of an hour long. Most of the time, which is terrible for, you know, like, you know, monetization reasons. It's terrible for YouTube algorithm reasons. You know, these videos are just things that a person shouldn't consider making. And so that, you know, ignoring the fact that we should then ask a question like, why do you do things that are directly contradictory to the success of your job? It's a good question that anyone should be asking themselves, really, especially someone, you know, who tries to pride themselves on that. But it's also interesting to look at because it's a good opportunity for me to be like, hey, what makes you watch the videos on this channel? Why is it in your mind that you know, some videos do super well and some videos don't? It's a hard question for me to answer, and it's like I feel like my entire job is trying to work out the answer to those questions. But I wanted to, I rather than like just doing this entirely on myself, the big thing I need to, you know, I think I like what I've done with this tree. I'm gonna fly to the one over here just to confirm. But look at that, we've made like a tiger style tree out of it by accident. Well, you know what? That's kind of nice. And then we'll go over here and we'll expand this tree a little bit because this clearly needs some form of expansion. It can't be this small. That's not okay. We'll make this one way bigger, expand it all the way on all the sides, and then there we go. We've got ourselves a slightly nicer jungle. Again, I'm improving the past very slightly right here, which is kind of what you know, to go back to my other example of like, I really hate planning because I was forced to plan in school multiple times, and like teachers would really just be like, no, you're just gonna do it and it's gonna be good for you and you're gonna work it out. And it's like, well, my entire game now is proving you wrong. I've told many stories of this before, but like I felt like proving someone wrong. This is actually a really valuable skill for, I don't know, like, because I'm a pretty contrarian person. Like, if you tell me something, I'm more inclined to believe the opposite than the thing itself, assuming I don't have some serious level of trust or belief or knowledge of you as a person before that point. You know, because most things that people say are dumb, you know, or at the very least they're not useful. We could say that way. To be less mean. Actually, it's telling people that they're not useful more mean than saying they're dumb. There's a debate for the end of time. But so let's grow this tree very slightly. There we go. This is another jungle tree, but this one is just miniature. See, it's just this is more like a spruce tree than a jungle tree, actually. You know, I'll take it. We got a little spruce tree in there. Just again, mixing up the trees, going good, going fun. You love to see it. And then we'll also put like a pretty low down middle branch on this tree, just because again, it's kind of fun. It's lovely. I don't know why. It's funny. It's been 7 years, because it's 2021 since I last made this, but I haven't improved the skills in the slightest. I wonder how that happened. But anyway, I think there is a, I think it's really like common to like have this like historical reason side, you know, because we have these very much. It's hard to admit sometimes because we like to believe we're super smart, like human beings that are really, you know, we got so many complex beliefs and things and etc. 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 You know, like love. That's proof that we're crazy. When in reality, like, isn't it suspicious that most love happens across, you know, lines that would, you know, lead you to be able to, create more human beings. It's so weird that your brain gives you some of the strongest feelings that humans have. So that you can, you know, that might lead you to, you know, like do things that makes more humans. Wow, that's definitely a coincidence, right? And but yeah, so we have these biological brains that are like, oh yeah, when something bad happens, of course you have this natural instinct to try and make that thing not happen again, because your brain doesn't like the bad feeling that it gets, because that bad feeling it gets is a sign that bad things are happening. And so how to avoid bad things happening again, give you a big negative lasting impression of like, ooh, this was really bad, huh? Definitely don't want anything like that. I'm going to make the lower branch for this tree way bigger than the higher branch, and I'm going to see what that looks like, because I reckon it could look very, very terrible, which is why I just absolutely have to do it. Okay, so we're going to climb up there by climbing the vines on this tree, I guess. Are there vines on this? There aren't. There's only vines on this one. So this is my way up and down. My El Natural way up and down. So anyway, yeah, I think it's interesting. Trying to like improve and not get trapped in negative thought patterns. It's a big, oh my god, what even was that? My Elytra just activated a second after I pressed the button, and it ruined my life there. But yeah, I think that's a big part of life and whatnot. And so one of the big problems I've been having is like every single time that YouTube goes badly, even now, it's just like it's this deep, resounding negative feeling of like, oh god, what is happening? It's all very terrible, right? I don't know how to describe it other than that. Like I'm always reminded that like so many YouTubers have come and gone because yeah, they assumed they were invincible and that like, oh yeah, well people will come find me. They know I exist and no, if YouTube doesn't recommend your videos to people, you are dead to them. It's sad, but it's kind of true for our. You know, again, I used to think like, oh, it's because like really we don't like YouTubers that much. Well, I've learned that people really do like YouTube. It's weird. Every now and then, like you'll connect with someone in real life that's like, oh yeah, we both like YouTube, huh? And it's like, yeah, what do you watch? Well, I watch like gaming videos and weird educational ones. And they're like, oh yeah, I watch the drama channels and that one and like traffic accidents. And it's like we're both on the same website, but it's not the same interest, is it? You know, just like. Imagine bonding over liking TV or bonding over liking sports. It's like, oh yeah, I watch NBA, and the other guy's like, yeah, I watch Formula One. So pretty similar sports, right? There's people who are very good at what they do, doing it, and you're like, yeah, it's crazy that we share that interest. And it's like, is it really a shared interest? Is it really at that point? I'm gonna kill this creeper. You know, next time you download the update to this map and there's not a creeper over here, you can thank me for my service on my own world. But yeah, so I think the next thing we should do is grab some cobblestone and work on the depths of this. Because for whatever reason, let's be honest, we know whatever the reason is. I just kind of never finished the full thing that should be here. So let's I guess we could just mine it with a silk touch pickaxe, and it would go wonderfully. So we'll light that on fire, get some temporary light source going up in here, and then we'll non-silk touch some blocks around her. I actually don't know how big this end tunnel bit should be, so we'll just make it 3 blocks wide. That sounds correct. It sounds correct. And then we'll mine this, replace it with cobblestone, and it'll look like we're in a jungle temple. Wow, how wonderful that is. But yeah, so there's this like funny feeling that just fills me, I would say, of like, I don't know, I think everyone must have this sometimes in their life where like self-doubt is a very, very common emotion, because how can you ever know exactly what you are in relation to the world? Your view of the world is so self-focused. I'm saying self-centered, actually. It sounds, when you say self-centered, we always assume it means like, oh, you don't think about other people. And it's like, no, it means the majority of thoughts that you have are in relation to yourself. Do you ever like, I have like a view outside my window where sometimes I see a lot of people walk past, perhaps I could say. And as I see people walk past, I'm like, yeah, okay, this person, I think about them in relation to me a lot. And sometimes I'm like, man, I think it's called solipsism, where you're like, isn't it crazy that human being that just passed me has a whole life of his own? You ever think about that? But like every single, when you walk through a busy crowd at an airport or wherever else, that busy crowd is filled with individuals all going to their own places. And although you might not be, that might not be something that like you're like, oh well, obviously, Toy Cat. Are you saying that you only just realized every human being is real? But like, even if you don't explicitly do it all the time, we totally do all implicitly kind of have this thing. Like, when an airline, kicks us, if I see this all the time. So when an airline sells too many tickets, they will kick someone off the flight, right? And so that way that, because they have to. They have more tickets sold than there are seats that exist. And people will always freak out when it's them. A lot of people find the system to be somewhat bad, etc., not realizing that so many people don't try to catch their flights, so it works most of the time. And the moment it's like them potentially being taken off, or something minorly inconvenient happening to them, like, oh, TSA is back. I love the idea of airport security in general. I think we should totally give away all of our freedoms for the ability to fly, as indeed worldwide you have to do. You're giving up a right for a privilege when you fly. You get searched in ways that are deeply unlawful. But again, you're doing it for the ability to fly. But it's like the moment it like inconveniences you, like, oh, come on, just let me have my water. Just this happened. I do it all the time, so it's fine. Stuff like that. Like people have this rationalization of like, oh yeah, but this is in my. That's only a thing that happens to other people. And things that happen to other people don't happen to me. We live in separate worlds in that way. And so, yeah, when you interact with anyone, I had a electrician round earlier because I don't have light switches in my house. I have motion detectors. Why do I have motion detectors instead of light switches? I'm sure the old landlord put them in place to, like, try and, discourage. I'm sure he worked out some electricity savings. I don't know how it could have ever been worth it, considering the cost of, it must have cost so much money to install motion sensors, and also motion sensors can't turn off. The only way to turn them off is to go away from them. And it's like, so they're actually less efficient in the daytime. During the summer, during the daytime, where like those lights are turning on regardless when you walk past them. Whatever, I'm mad at the concept of motion detector switches. I'm not gonna share that with you. But the electrician came round and he's like, oh yeah, so this, that. And, it's interesting because, again, during that little interaction, I realized, like, oh, yeah, this is a guy that goes home, because I think he was wearing one of those, because there's two types of masks you can wear, right? There's masks that more broadly protect other people more than they protect you, and there's masks that protect you more than they protect other people, right? That's the mask game. Are we all up to speed with that, or are we back in 2020 over here? Anyway, but like he was wearing one of those, and it's like, oh yeah, that's interesting by itself. And then you realize like, oh yeah, probably probably lives with his parents or something like, or your grandparents maybe, or even just with housemates, and he's a really considerate guy, but like lives with other people who are super concerned, about it. It maybe, or maybe like just is a germaphobe. Yeah, there's lots of different ways that could go. But a lot of people are just like, oh, you're young and healthy. I don't understand why you even care, or something along those lines. And it's like, well, there's lots of reasons to care that aren't like directly self-motivated, right? And I find that to be interesting. Like caring about the people directly around you is something I feel like a lot of people have missing. I think I'm like guilt. Also, I think there's meant to be like things like that along the side here. I don't know why I don't have them, but I guess I should throw those in place right now because it's very strange that I don't. So just 4 of those? Yeah, just 4 of those. But yeah, I think something that a lot of like online spaces will do this, where it's like remove the concept of like I'm not removed, but like a lot of places hate the concept of family, right? And even I can totally feel this of like, why is it that there are these strangers that we know that are somehow like they're linked to us because of like birth or marriage or whatever else, just because someone in our common family tree got the signal that made them fall in love with someone in their common family tree. Now we're meant to like hang out at least some number of times a year, like twice a year, 3 times a year. I don't know how often you hang out with your family. Maybe it's more common. I know in a lot of places, like the family is like the close friend group. Again, I don't know your situation. Maybe you don't like any of your family. But isn't that a weird concept? Like, isn't it incredibly strange that there's a bunch of, like there's a 50-year-old dude that we talk about, we've known each other since we were young. That would be really weird if it weren't for the fact that, like, that's, I guess, reductionism on some level, right? Like, something I guess I do a lot is and I've kind of realized it recently, is I try to reduce things to their smallest parts. So much in society is so big and scary that if you try and get a handle on it, you're not going to do a good job. That's my take. I think that like trying to understand, I don't know, central banking is a great example. How like have you or just let's say money. How does money work? Well, you give money to someone and then they give you goods and services because they can spend that money on things they want for themselves. But it's like, well, where does the money come from? And it's like, oh, there's these people that print the money. It's the government, and the government print the money so that people can spend stuff. And it's like, well, why? Who came up with that idea? And it's like, oh, well, it actually used to be private banks that printed money before the government banks just became the de facto ones that people started using. And it's like, okay then. And it's like, so what stops them just printing more money? And it's like, oh, actually, they do print more money all the time. And it's like, well, what stops it from becoming worth less? And it's like, well, they mostly spend it on government bonds, which is, and it's like, so the government is borrowing money to print money into the world and it's not causing problems. And it's like, well, yeah, and we'll ignore, we'll pretend it's not a problem. It probably isn't one. And then it's like, okay, so what stops you making fake money? Not really much. So you can just make fake money, yeah. And if no one spots it, then it's as good as real money. And it's like, oh, that seems like a problem. And it's like, in a way, people who print counterfeit money, if it's a good enough counterfeit, one that no one can tell the difference between, they've just done the exact same job as the role of government. And it's like, oh, well, is that good? Does my money mean, like, and then like people start to be like, oh, so my money is worthless. And it's like, no, that's not how that one works either. Like, without an authority to like make things clear, people get very lost sometimes, I find. And that's interesting, right? Why do we need these big overarching systems telling us what to do to function? And again, something we are cavemen human that sometimes like to pretend that we're so much smarter. Or at least that's how I feel when I look at this. Maybe everyone else is a caveman human and I'm just the one who's above all of that. But I don't think that actually is true. I think that is the less likely the possibilities. And so yeah, so one of the things I've realized is I'm very bad at finishing thoughts. Why is that? You know, like even like this is actually one of the things that makes me so bad at doing something that I don't want to do, because the first moment I have the opportunity to do something else, I'm excited. Are we gonna have a conversation that's bad? Like, so, you know, I recently stated, it was in a second channel video about the Olympics, I genuinely believe that the Olympics would be more interesting if instead of, you know, like, trying to catch people for, it's called doping, right? When you take performance enhancing drugs, if we're just like, well, if they're performance enhancing and the goal of the Olympics is to have the best performance, you know, wouldn't it be silly not to use them? Imagine if I was like, yeah, so I play Minecraft, but I don't use enchantments because, you know, they're performance enhancing. They make it work too good. And again, like this is actually the counter responses to this are really good. They're like, well, then you'd be encouraging children and, you know, people who are getting into sport to start doing it. And it's like, well, no, I mean, I don't, you know, like I really enjoy, I don't know, what's an illegal thing I like to do? I like to ride electric scooters. You know, that's a bad example because some number of people actually do think they're the devil. I like to use enchantments. I enchant my shears with unbreaking. And there is a chance that by doing this and putting in a video and telling you all about how great shears of unbreaking are... Why is this piece of dirt here, by the way? I really want to know. But there's a chance by me doing this, some young person watches the videos. You know, that's a fact that seems to be true on the internet. And then someone will watch these videos and be like, yeah, I'll put I'll put it on my shears too. And what we say to that is like, oh yeah, well, you know, people should make their own judgments. It's not that bad of a thing. What's the worst that can happen? And it's interesting because why do we change our thought process depending on how bad the outcome is? You know, surely maybe this is reducing things down too much again. Like, you know, like hypothetically, right? Shouldn't we care the same amount about, you know, murder as we do about other crimes? You know, if crime means something that is inherently unlawful and bad and that we should want to stop, why is it that we send so many, you know, police detectives looking after people who commit a murder, but if you commit, like, you know, let's say you ride an e-scooter 5 miles per hour above the, you know, actually bad example, we send a murder team worth of people to stop that too. But a common crime that happens all the time is, you know, I don't know, people being paid people not being paid for the first 30 minutes of their shift. And so if they're being paid minimum wage, they'll get paid some amount above minimum wage, right? Below minimum wage. That's how that actually works. You're not glad I'm not your employer, right? But no, it's interesting that like oh yeah, that's a common crime and we don't care about it so much because it's like, well, it's only, you know, what is half an hour of minimum wage in the UK is like, I don't know, £4. Half an hour of minimum wage in America is like, I don't know, $4 to $8 depending on your state. And we just go, yeah, $4 to $8 isn't worth the same as a human life. And it's like, well, if it's like $4 to $8 ill-gotten, shouldn't it be? Shouldn't we care the same amount? You know, isn't it still the same principle? And the answer is no, it's not. And that's why I've always wondered, like, we ultimately kind of have to pick things we care about. Yeah, that one over there is too boxy still. I think I can do a better job if I just come on. Yeah, let's reboxify that. Let's also do a better job of this. Honestly, we can do better. We can do much better. But yeah, like ultimately, okay, so we'll just cover all of this up, and then we'll find it. We'll make sure there's still a nice little hole going through it. Ultimately, there is this. Ultimately, you have to like have a thing where you're like, yeah, well, there's serious things and there's not serious things, and it's like, oh, so for instance, I stole a chocolate ball from Tesco when I was younger, and it's like, still to this day, one of my like, I guess almost like defining memories. Like, I was so scared. Every time I heard the police siren, like for months after, I was like, oh God, they have finally found me. You know, my conscience ate away at me. And so, you know, I realized like, you know, that chocolate ball was not worth the months of absolute agony that I felt internally. That, you know, it didn't even need to be prosecuted. It didn't even need to have anyone come after me because I ultimately decided, man, this sucks. I don't want to deal with this. It was only one free chocolate ball. Maybe I should just, you know, eventually have my own money so that I can buy my own chocolate balls. thoughts, you know? It was something like that. And you know, people think weird things all the time, and that's okay, I guess, is what I'm saying. But it's also very strange. I actually, you know what, can we talk about an interesting example? So this is my 2014 jungle temple build, right? Today, I made it very, very slightly nicer. Is it an amount nicer that anyone will notice? There's an interesting question for the ages, I reckon. You know, today I made my jungle temple slightly nicer than it would otherwise be. I reckon we could do the same, just like that. Yeah, it's a slightly nicer jungle temple than it previously was before. Wow, that is truly wonderful and blessed and all of that stuff. But you know, like, you know, should you be leaving old things or should you be making new things? It's one of those like big questions. Just like the question of like, should we help people? Should we like really, you know, force people to do things that will help themselves, or should we allow people to make mistakes? These are big questions that for some reason, you know, like inside all of our brains based on our life experiences, elicit a very slightly different response. And I've always found that to be so strange that we're like that. But as a human, okay, you know what? I'm going to move one of these to be on the row to the right. So I'll just throw that on the ground for now so I can pick it up. That was a poor decision, I guess, but there we go. Look at that. Throw it down there. Very slightly nicer than it was before. Actually, I could make like a little secret pattern from these things as like a way to teach you how to find maybe something that's hidden inside. I think that's a great idea. But you know what else I think is a great idea? I want to just, before I go here, remember that like, I think about like, you know, art all the time, because art is the one field in life where even though there's a lot of crazy people in there with very crazy disparate thoughts, people are like, yeah, no matter what you make, no matter how terrible it objectively is, it's art. It's something unique that comes from the human experience. And I think that, you know, even though like art and like business and like, you know, like running things are considered to be very opposite fields, I actually don't think they are. I think that the actuality of art versus, you know, science or whatever, the actuality of art versus, you know, like business or any of these other like dividing lines is that like actually ultimately, it is the, it's the same thing that like the human experience leads us to very different conclusions. We're all human, we all have that shared thing, but no matter how similar you are to someone, you're going to start to notice the differences long before you're going to start to notice the similarities. For instance, you know, if you really don't like, okay, let's look at something today. If you really don't like the jungle anyway, then it's still going to look the same. It's not something that's close to you. It's just a bad Minecraft build before, and it still is a bad one now. If you really like something though, like something I get some compliments for is my little statue. A few people. Actually, you know what? There aren't many things in this world I get compliments for. It's always nice when I do. But like, there are certain things where people are like, oh yeah, that's a cool build. And then when you are attached to something, the difference between liking it a lot and not liking it very much gets very small, very quick. Church to the Wither? Question mark 2013. And so yeah, I wanted to just use this as an opportunity to remind you that we're all strangely different, and that those differences, kind of like art, are what make us something so interesting to look at. And that the last couple of weeks, I've been really coming to grips with just how first of all, YouTube has been like, I don't know how to put this better. Like or, you know, like in a way that doesn't feel like I'm complaining about the YouTube thing, because it's the worst thing to me when YouTube's complaining about YouTube. It's like, you know, complaining about this to your audience is the worst place to do it. Like this isn't going to help anyone, I don't think, at least. You know what I should do? I should put a boat on here so it's ready for next time, and then it'll be wonderful. I'll come here and I'll be ready to just hop straight in a boat. But okay, we can do this. We can place a boat straight forward. It's so hard to do, but I believe in myself. Did we do it? Oh, you better believe we did. You better believe we did it. But yeah, so it's super interesting to me to see all the different ways we take on things. And I say flying past my cake does it well. And I'm really enjoying what is an accidental break from all of this, but I want to come back stronger. I'm having a really, really hard time dealing with. I feel like YouTube is genuinely like a drug almost to me. Like I love when people are enjoying what I'm doing, and you know it's going really well and whatnot. That is like some of the best feeling in my life, and the fact that I get paid is this like wonderful secondary thing, almost to the whole thing. And some days it is okay. We want to. Should we just leave the shulker box on the ground here? You know what? I shouldn't. And so I won't. Let's put them all in there. Some days that is all I really want to do. I'm just like, okay. All I want to do is you know, like do the thing because that's my job or whatever. But a lot of days I'm like, I love that people are enjoying this. I'm looking forward to making the next video that people will love and that will, you know, like show up on more people, you know, like people will actually see and whatnot. And it's so interesting. I've said that phrase too many times now. I think it's one of my crutch phrases. Everyone has like a phrase they'll say is like filler while they're looking for more words to look for, because you know the brain is a complex, confusing place. And I wanted to say that it's been a weird time, both having to do so much in the real world, but you know, feeling so busy every moment of the day. Almost it's felt like for the last 2 weeks there's just been something intense and crazy, whether it's getting COVID tested to come back to the UK and, you know, filling out a giant form so that they can come and check on me at any moment just to make sure that, in fact, my vaccination is not British. And so, you know, like dealing with all of that while dealing with a house, while dealing with, you know, packing and unpacking my entire life twice in the span of a week, because I had to pack my American life up and then pack my you know, like outside London life up and move them both into the same house which is filled with issues. Like you know, this last week I cleaned some black mold. I can still smell bleach so strongly right now because black mold cleaner also has bleach in. Did you know that? I didn't know that. But just like finishing this Nether portal area very slightly at the end of the video, sometimes it helps to have a little chaos amongst the order, and sometimes it helps to have some order amongst the chaos. The whole point of the yin yang is kind of that. Just like realize where your flaws are, realize where your weaknesses are, and put some effort in there. And so that's what I'm trying to do. There are lots of times before where I would have been like full on, not depressive episodes, but like doing some very unhealthy things to deal with, you know, like a decline in YouTube, to deal with a situation where I'm like fully out of control of what happens to me over the next week while I get my internet set up and get my desk set up and get everything set up so that I can actually make videos and stream and do all the things that I've missed doing so much and hope that people still remember me when I get back. But ultimately, I'm just trying my best to go with the flow, work on your weaknesses, and you might be a better person. I think this is a very long-winded way of saying that, but I hope you will enjoy today's video regardless. I hope you will enjoy the slight lack of videos over the next week, as this Friday/Saturday, things are going to be good, and hopefully we're going to have streaming quality internet. If you want to learn more about that, if you want to see the other side of YouTube, I really recommend following me at IBXToken on Twitter. But for now, thank you for even watching this video, and I mean that very genuinely. Like the vast majority of people who subscribe to my channel, vast majority of people who watch my channel don't subscribe to it. There's vast majority of people who subscribe to the channel don't watch a lot of the videos. And then a lot of those people who do watch the videos only watch the ones that, you know, do super well and are really, really interested. Yeah, and so you're in a very tiny minority of people who watch the Let's Play, let alone make it to the end. For real, thank you. I don't know how to make this more sincere besides saying, you know, actually I hate you. I'm lying about being sincere, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.